Hi, I'm Gavin. Welcome to Capital View. And welcome today to Dan Robinson, who is Chief of the Research and Analysis section at the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Glad to be here, Tim. Good to talk to you.
Dan, one of the things that you folks follow is, which everybody's interested in these days, is the kind of the ebb and flow of population, people moving in and out of the state, and I'm particularly concerned about whether what's happening with working age adults, whether there's going to be enough working age adults for employers to hire in a few years to keep our economy running. What's your thoughts, your latest thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a hot topic. Where have the workers gone? And one of the things we've been trying to do is separate the pre-COVID trends and dynamics from the COVID trends. We know a lot of people quit, resigned, had to stop working because the restaurant or bar or gym shut down. But it's important what you touched on, Tim. Before that, we had a trend of declining working age people. And that's primarily because the baby boomer population is so big. We had an increase of 40,000 from 2010 to 2020, 65 plus. Where are those people coming from? They're coming from working age populations. We had a decline, not coincidentally, of 30,000 people over that same decade of 15 to 64, and almost no increase for K-12 age. So aside from all the COVID factors, we had this big exiting of working age population that was going to put a pinch on the number of eligible workers, just it's math. And then COVID came and made a lot of that more acute.
So the bottom line is, how soon are we going to start feeling the effects of this? Are we arguably already are? But
no, absolutely, we are. And Alaska's kind of interesting. Our baby boomer population, we've just written about this a couple of times recently, is a little bit younger. So baby boomers born 45 to 64, the younger, and ours are unusually young within that range because of early 80s and pipeline construction brought them, and there's some reasons behind that. But the key point is just that there are a lot more in the near future set to retire. Related, we just did some research looking to see the workers who disappeared during the COVID era, and they were disproportionately 65 plus. So for all the talk of people wanting more meaning from their work and needing to stay home to take care of kids and all those things which are real, there's also this factor of people retiring earlier than they probably would have because of COVID. Those people are not likely to come back. So this mismatch of the number of open positions and applicants to fill them is going to be with us beyond the COVID recovery.
Is there any, obviously the question that comes to fore is, what can we do about this? And I guess the first thing we can do is train people, young people, to take jobs that are open. That's an obvious solution, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's kind of almost always part of the right answer. The other one is to think about ways to tap into populations that we haven't had to before. So one possibility is to facilitate the baby boomers working on their own terms going forward. So more flexibility, part-time, some of those kinds of things. Childcare would be interesting, right? We've got a lot of women especially staying home specific to COVID, but also kind of looking for more meaning or kind of reevaluating everything. If we had better childcare options and that goes into a category of a lot of things employers could do that they didn't used to have to do that would make it more possible for some of these groups to work. So there's that. And then I think the early age training, kind of getting to kids, middle school, high school, with internships and familiarization with the opportunities that are out there. We do a report every year on non-residents working in Alaska. In typical years, 20% of our jobs, of our workers, are non-residents. So all kinds of things we could do with that information to get people trained for those jobs, especially the ones that are high paying.
Dan, uh, it seems to me that you know, rural populations have been pretty stable through the looking at some of the census data. How does that weigh into this? That the rural communities are just going to continue to be there? That's pretty important to our economy. They're stable, but is there any in movement to the urban areas that could take up some of the slack in the workforce?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of our highest paying jobs are in the rural areas. So North Slope, you think of Red Dog, you think of mines, um, but the distances are still big. But one misperception in Alaska is that there's some big trend of rural areas emptying into the cities, that they won't be around anymore. There are fairly good sized flows in both directions, rural to urban and urban to rural. Slightly more people come rural to urban than the other direction, but rural areas are a little younger and birth rates are a little bit higher. So it is a misperception that we've got a disappearing of rural Alaska. Job opportunities are tricky. They're often healthcare and local government, and then some traveling to Red Dog, for example, is probably the best. But lots of important things there. But it's not true that rural is dying in Alaska by any means.
That's true. Is the is there anything in the census data that points to the sort of inter movements within the rural communities? For example, from small villages to large villages. Does that tell us anything?
Not so much the census data, but our own demographic unit has a lot of great data looking specifically at those trends. And you do see movement to and from the hubs. So Bethel, for example, Kotzebue, again, in both directions, slightly more to the larger areas than back, but then compensated for generally by higher birth rates.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it goes to show us that rural Alaska is in some ways kind of an economic anchor for the state. It's a stable population, and it creates people live out there. They require goods and services, and that's business for urban Alaska.
Yeah. I mean, Anchorage construction contractors are probably the best example. When there's action and you know, again, healthcare and local government quite often drive. And when I say local government, infrastructure, sewer, things like that. But yeah, rural Alaska, especially if you define it to include resource extraction. So that's oil and that's also mining. Most of that occurs in what we would call rural Alaska.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's something for us to think about. At any rate, good luck to you folks, Dan, and we'll be talking more. These are very interesting topics, very important topics. Anyway, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tim. Fun to talk.
Okay, thank you, Dan.